I learned from Tom was that if you always try to do the right thing, you will be successful in a lot of different ways. If you care about your work, you're passionate about your work, and you want to make a difference, that it makes work a lot more enjoyable, first of all. And secondly, you're more successful, which is obviously a plus.
43 years ago, because of his love of writing and his love of storytelling and seeking the truth, found himself in a career that took him into public service journalism in our market.
His legacy is going to be one of informing our community in an honest and fair and objective way through the News Journal. And I think the community benefited greatly through his ability to do that.
I've always been interested in current events as a kid. You know, I watched the Neil Armstrong walk on the moon. They stayed up late at night to watch that, and I saw Jack Ruby assassinate Lee Harvey Oswald. I was just always interested in current events. In combination with that, I always liked to write. I was only a reporter for 5 years before I got into the management area. You know, even when I was the publisher at the News Journal for a good period of time and in charge of the whole business operation, you know, I still focused as much as I could on journalism.
I think he was fair. He tried to be fair on everything he did. And you could ask him something and he'd give you an honest answer. I mean, he wouldn't beat around the bush or lie to you. He'd say, this is the way it is, and you found out later that's the way it is. It was right.
He upholds an ethical approach to all he does, but particularly in journalism. Tom is so passionate about making certain that what is represented is the truth.
You know, when you're the editor of a newspaper, you at times have to publish stories that may not make everybody happy. It's one business where the customer may not always be right. But what Tom always tried to do was to do the right thing, whether it was how we interacted with the community, whether it's how we cover a story. And some days that may put you at odds with the establishment of a community, and some days they may love you as you go through that process. And Tom understood that better than anybody I've known.
We felt that we had very good press from the News Journal, and of course we knew that if something that was not good that happened that included us, that would also be reported. I mean, that's really how it works. The community has the right to know all of these things.
He wanted that News Journal to be a watchdog and try to give them what they needed, provide a better community for them through policing it and watching what they were doing.
No matter what, you have to uncover the information that's factual, and sometimes that can fly in the face of what people want to have printed or see printed, but it's an important element of living in a democratic society. So I appreciate that he honors that.
Probably the biggest story at the time I was at the News Journal was the murder trial of Dr. John Boyle. A lot of people knew Dr. Boyle. A lot of people thought very highly of Dr. Boyle as their physician, and it was very difficult for a big segment of the community to accept the idea that he would actually murder his wife. So folks were really glued to that story that was a period of months.
We would often hear so much what the paper's negative, the news, what they're printing only negative type events. I think that bothered him a lot when people would say that. People, when they pick up the News Journal, if you don't have some of the not so nice things happening in the world, they're going to say, why didn't the News Journal report on it?
You know, I don't know that folks appreciate somebody who's just always pointing the finger at things that are wrong, although that's part of our responsibility. But so to balance that, we tried to really involve ourselves in the community in a lot of different ways.
In the case with the 179th Airlift Wing, what he did to communicate the mission, the value, and to our community of the 179th is unbelievable, and he's made an unbelievable impact in that respect. He produced a booklet that the 179th Airlift Wing commander is using, and we use with legislators and visitors, and it's really making a difference.
I feel good that people feel that what we did as part of the News Journal's involvement was significant, and it does make me feel good.
importantly, on the editorial side, you know, he's quite a convener, and just as he's able to make that telephone call and get through to lots of influencers, he's also able to convene a good, diverse group of people to express their expectations and opinions and projections.
He would do something after the first of each calendar year where he would have leaders or people that were involved in current issues come, and we would have discussions. Sometimes they were around economics, one time they were around the drug issue, another time the police force in the community. And as you can imagine, those conversations weren't always easy to have. I mean, I think there were probably at least 40 people in the room when we had the last discussion, and so I think those helped the community grow.
And he liked working with events that made a difference for the community, things like the Rehab Telethon, working with United Way, the Soapbox Derby.
Helping raise money for the food drive, the Dash to the Goal, the Center. I think if people really understand him, they'll think he's one of the greatest people around for the community to help anybody and help agencies and all, because he really believed in helping people.
When you work for Tom, you know he expects excellence, so you work hard to try to meet that. He has high standards, and when you don't succeed or something falls through, he gets frustrated by that, which is fair. I mean, that's what you know, you can't set a high bar and not keep pushing. Even if you weren't successful on something, if you knew you put your full effort into it, that counted a lot with Tom.
And we were having a conversation once, and I said, you know, when you've got stories that you need to develop in a deadline, and there's little content, I said, what's your strategy? He said, well, go to the local tavern and strike up conversations.
When Tom would eat at the Coney Island, I think he connected with a lot of people in a lot of ways, and there may have been a story or two that was generated from those interactions. It was good that he kind of had his pulse on the community through his experiences at lunch.
You know, the newspaper business and the media business in general is such a rapid fire operation. It goes so fast that sometimes it's hard to feel like you're keeping pace. Sometimes you feel like you could have done better, and maybe wishing that you could focus a little more and touch things a little more thoroughly.
When you think of the newspaper industry and what Tom has seen through 4 decades, it's just incredible.
You know, we have a lot of digital customers now. We deliver a lot of news online. It's instant, it breaks. We have it posted within sometimes seconds, but usually within minutes of what's happening. And now you're delivering news on a handheld device to people instead of exclusively in print.
I think he told Ron Simon once that his greatest achievement was surviving. And I believe that. He was in a building with the presses going full blown, and then to see the digital age and that transition of people's taste back and forth between print and electronic, it had to be an exciting time for him.
Our digital business is growing, and our print business is still very solid. It's a new challenge, but it's still journalism. People ask me about my retirement, I say, well, it's tough to go from being in the middle of everything to being in the middle of a couple things.
Well, I just hope over the next years, me and him get out and run around together and go to different places and keep helping people.
Doc Stumble and I have sort of a mission to find that really special niche where Tom can stay involved. And he's indicated, if you look at all the wonderful articles at the conclusion of his retirement festivities, he mentioned he'll be around. He's not going anywhere.
I want him to continue on. I think he needs to do that so that he's still involved with all the people and still helps make things happen. So I want that to happen for him.
I hope that there's a sense that there's some things that happened in the community, or maybe some changes that occurred as a result of our reporting, that people will remember. Not necessarily me, but that the News Journal was part of making that positive thing happen.